Hello, hello,
Hi,
hello.
hi, what's up? I always forget how good that intro music is.
I do too. I do too.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes. So if you guys can't tell, it's me and Andy again.
What
Hello,
up?
Jumpcut 107.1.
It's
Uh,
true.
we're talking about the Goonies today,
I am very excited for this.
directed by Steven Spielberg, 1980 something.
Steven Spielberg. I don't think he directed. I think he was just the producer.
Was he?
Right?
I thought he directed it.
Um.
Might have just been the producer.
Um. Yeah, it is Richard Donner.
Richard Donner and Steven Spielberg is a producer.
Yes.
Okay, there we go, there we go.
Yes.
But yeah, no, starring some amazing actors such as Josh Brolin, Kihi Kwan,
Yeah.
Sean Astin or Sean Astin.
Sean Astin.
Yeah, a lot of great, like honestly, A-list actors that have come out of this.
Yeah, I love this movie.
Yes.
We talked about it a little bit on last
The Princess Bride
time
episode.
we were
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, the Goonies.
Well, I always get reminded of it. So, like, the funny reason I talk about the two movies in like succession is because I had a neighbor, because my mom and dad never were Princess Bride or Goonies fans. So they seen it, but they weren't like fans. But I had a neighbor who was close to my family, and she'd be like, "Luke, you would love these two movies as like a 5 or 6-year-old." And so I was like, I initially watched Princess Bride. Obviously, from last week, you can tell I fell in love with it, and then I also really like the Goonies.
I love the Goonies. My dad, this is one of his favorite movies, and I grew up watching it. And for all of you watching later, I have a whole page.
Oh, a whole page of
just
notes today.
Fun
Here we go.
stuff to say.
There we
I'm
go.
really excited.
The Goonies is such a classic. It's one of those movies that, in so many ways, it's like that. If you think about, it, I think it came out in the 80s. I'm not going crazy, right?
No, it came out
70s.
in 1985.
Okay, perfect. 80s. It's like that's what I'm so right. It's that this and like Breakfast Club or something like. And you know, I'm not the biggest Breakfast Club fan. When I think of like an 80s movie, I'm like, oh, the Goonies. You know,
Yeah.
like oh, the Goonies. You know,
Yeah.
it's like that movie where I'm like, it's so nostalgic for this idea of the 80s. It's what Stranger Things wants to be in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, what I think is really crazy about this movie is I have a very high suspension of disbelief, I think it's really hard for a movie to really get me to believe that these characters are who they say they are. You know,
Yeah.
usually I'm like, oh, it's a film. They're, especially having worked on a ton of film sets, I kind of have this like, oh, I know how these work. These are actors. But this movie specifically, every single time I watch it, I'm like, oh, that's Mikey, that's Bren, that's Mouth, that's Chunk, that's Data, that's Andy. Like every single character is that character. There's never
Yeah.
a moment watching this that I'm like, oh, that's Kihei Kwan or Sean Astin, or
Yeah.
you know, it's very, very powerful.
And I can agree. It's like I honestly when I turned this on, I was like watching it, and I honestly forgot Kihi Kwan was in this because so many, like, obviously if you talk about his last year crazy run of Everything Everywhere at Once
Yeah.
and his like success to be a Oscar winning actor, he lost. This is his last role for like 20, 30 years.
Was this before or after Indiana Jones?
This was right after.
Right after,
So,
yeah. It was this Indiana Jones, and then he quit
Yeah.
until he saw Crazy Rich Asians come out, and he
then
wanted to come back
Everything
to
Everywhere at Once.
acting,
Yeah.
and he killed it. He's done
Yeah.
incredible ever since.
Yeah, and he's been a voice actor since. He's been an actor since, and I think he's very impressive, and I'm proud of the guy.
And he's won the heart of everyone.
Every single person in the world.
Yeah.
Everyone loves Kihi Kwan, but in this movie, you really get like as a kid, I always loved Dada. I mean,
Yeah.
who doesn't?
Yeah.
I mean, Chunk. I think that's everyone's when you're a kid.
Oh, Data and Chunk are
Yeah,
the two.
yeah, as everyone's favorite characters. Like I can't remember the leader. What's his name again?
Mikey.
Mikey. Yes. I know everyone like wants to like him, but I'm a big side character fan. Like
Yeah.
if you talk to me, I'm like most of the time my favorite character is gonna be a side character.
Well, that's what's interesting about this is like every single character is written so well. This was written by Chris Columbus, who you might know from writing Harry Potter
Yeah.
or from writing Home Alone.
Yeah.
So he's really, really, really excellent at writing children. He's
Yeah.
really, really good, and every single interaction, especially with Mouth. Mouth is really funny because Mouth is me, you know, like
Yeah.
every line that comes out of his mouth, where he's like, "Chunk, I have pictures of your mom taking a bath," and then he's like slams into a door. Like every single line of dialogue from all of these side characters, you feel as if they were best friends since they were born, you know, and it's really crazy how real it feels.
And it's also like these simple, small things that happen throughout the film. Like one of the ones that comes to mind is like what makes everyone seem real, even if they are like like caricatures in some way, like how like Chunk is, you know, like they characterize his like food eating habits, but like no, nonetheless, like the way that the small things, like at the end of the movie when you have Chunk's family comes up back with like a pizza for him,
Yeah.
like it's like the small things that characterize him, or like the beginning when he does the dance at the beginning, the truffle shuffle. It's like that you really realize that these people are friends, and like my friends and I have done so many dumb things where I like they make me do something stupid or I do something stupid. It's just like it's a friendship thing that is not done often. Christopher Columbus, he said this was written by, I actually didn't know that. Like you obviously see how great he is in Home Alone, where you see how that character in that film is like so real and so realized, and then you also have the Harry Potter films, the first two, where like that's a lot of people say the first Harry Potter film was one of the best adaptations of a first like book ever, and it's like because it is, it's like it's very well written, and it's very like these kids are really kids, and you see all that exemplified in the Goonies. And you can't just give all the testament to the writing, which is it's a big part of it. But the acting is also super impressive because again, at the end of the day, you have to take into account these are kids. Sure, people like Josh Brolin and like all the teenage actors are teenagers, but you have like the kids like Sean Astin, or you have like Ki Kwans, and like everyone who is acting their butts off and like showcasing that they're friends, and like honestly having a great time going through the craziest treasure hunts, getting chased by an evil mom, and it's like all that stuff. It's just it's in a lot of ways I think it's a film that inspires like that adventureness, and like even though that like a film like Pirates of the Caribbean isn't necessarily kids going around doing an amazing treasure hunt to like just be awesome. Like you see that like that idea incorporated in many adventure films nowadays.
Absolutely. I think the children actors are really what sell this movie. Like you can tell every single character feels fleshed out. Like at the and it's so quick to establish who these people are. Like at the beginning, Chunk is at an arcade and cops drive by and he presses his pizza up against the window
and it's like a smoothie,
just like splashes all over him. And then, like, that sort of character trait is throughout the entire film, where he's like, he calls the police and he's like, oh, yeah, my Elvis's sister wanted to use my bathroom, or, oh, I saw Bigfoot the other day. And it's like, he's just a pathological liar.
Yep.
And then that comes back at the end when he's being tortured with the blender, and it's one of the funniest scenes where he's like, tell us everything you know. And he goes through his whole life story for no reason. And he's like, the worst thing I ever done is I made fake throw up, and I went over the side of a balcony and dump it over the thing. I've never felt so bad in my whole life. It is so funny. This like that is just one character. Every single character has one of these, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas Mouth is talking to the mover, telling her that there's like drugs and a dungeon in their house, and it's so funny how well each of these characters bring it, you know?
Yeah, and that's one thing. So, like, I always attribute this film to an adventure film more than anything else. And, like, it has these ideas of comedy, action, whatever. Because there are parts of it where obviously you have the comedy. You can't have this film without its comedy and its charm. And there are many adventure films in this world. And like I love going on a crazy adventure, especially when it's just I attribute a lot of the idea to whimsicalness. Like it's not, this film isn't necessarily taking itself like seriously. It's not trying to like be the most like grandiose, amazing, like we're going to go steal the Declaration of Independence. So, you know, it's not doing that. It's kids, and that's what the best part about it is. It in a lot of ways it incorporates the child's imagination more than anything else.
Absolutely. I think it's a very literal interpretation of when you are a kid and you and all your friends are hanging out and you go on these incredible imagination adventures in your backyard looking for treasure and stuff. And it's kind of a movie that, watching it, you will fantasize wishing that you had that moment in your life, wishing that you had an adventure like this. I can't think of anyone who's watched this movie and all of them walk away thinking, dang, I need to go explore in my attic, see if there's a map up there, and then follow them. Like, that is the dream for everyone, you know?
And it's something like, this is one of these films that I'm always like, man, like, I wish I was a kid again. Like, there are a couple movies that do that for me, and it's just like one of those things where it's like, there's the sense of carefreeness and like imagination that is in every one of these characters' minds. And it's just so like, wow, it's like, I was once like that. But even though I can still like be like. And then the movie reminds you that you can still be like that. Because like obviously you had the teenage characters. I honestly can't remember their names.
Brad and Andy.
Brad and Andy. That's your name.
It's true.
Where even though they're teenagers, they still have their own imagination within it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that in a lot of ways incorporates it to being like imagination just can't go away. And like your childhood like whimsicalness, your childhood lack of like stress and pain doesn't go it doesn't go away. You can always be a kid at heart. And this film is one of those biggest like yeah, it is. Like even like look at like Dada's Dad, where you have when he comes back up and he's just gonna take a picture of his son. And, like an inventor thing pops up, and it's like I don't know. It's like it's this idea that every character is just we can all be kids again, and we can all go on those adventures. And if it's just going on a hike in the woods and just pretending a little bit, or having a sword fight with your friends, there are many things in your life that you don't need to take seriously, and you can be a kid again.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this film really does a really good job of showing that transition of adolescence. I wrote down Goonies is about the transition to adulthood and how to hold on to that wonder that you have.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because all of these kids are growing up extremely quickly. Mikey especially has two very distinct, like, I don't know how to relate this to anything else other than Kyle from South Park, where he has like a I learned this sort of moment where he's like, this is our time down here. Like he has those, and like the whole scene of them with the wishing well and Andy and Steph finally becoming a Goonie when they send up the jacket. It's really neat. It's really, really cool.
I can't agree more. So yeah, no, it's again, it's this wonder in like that idea of it, like when you said Brad and Andy becoming Goonies, it's like them accepting that wonder and accepting that you don't need to be all serious as a teenager, you know?
Absolutely, absolutely. Some of my favorite parts about this movie is just learning how fascinating it was behind the scenes.
Really, I actually don't know anything about it.
Ooh, I could monologue for a while about this. I'm excited.
I actually know it. So this is one of the movies where I've always attributed to me loving it. I never owned this film. I always had to borrow it from my neighbor. And so I only watched it 3 or 4 times as a kid, but I always loved it. And I knew Steven Spielberg was involved, and obviously you have Steven Spielberg making E.T., all these amazing, like in a lot of ways, like childhood home movies for me. Like, I love them. And I obviously knew he was involved. Actually, I always thought he was the director for some reason. And I guess I'm excited to hear the behind the scenes. I had no idea anything about it. I'm really excited.
There's a lot of deleted plot points in it that turn it from the sort of based in realism adventure to something that was more fantastic.
Okay.
My favorite thing that I think is super funny is in the scene where they're underground and they're banging on all the pipes and they're just ruining things above. There was a deleted scene where 2 gorillas escape from a zoo because of them banging on the pipes, and their names were Bonzo and Bertha. And Bonzo and Bertha appear periodically throughout the entire film. They steal a car, they steal a golf cart, they crash into things, and it's just like a gag that goes nowhere. And in the original ending that happens on the beach, that originally happened at Mikey's house, and it ends with Bonzo and Bertha crashing into their fence, and it got cut. I think rightfully. I think it's there's only one known clip that was like resurfaced of it, but
do Bonzo and Bertha like appear anywhere, even in not deleted scenes?
Kind of. They actually were the same costumes for Planet of the Apes, so they reused those costumes for Goonies.
Oh, interesting.
Which I think is kind of funny. Another one. This one's a bit more well known. Is at the end when they find One-Eyed Willie's ship. Before they're able to get on, they get attacked by an octopus. It's a giant puppet octopus. I want to say it was the Jim Henson Company, but I'm not too sure. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah, fair enough.
And it's pretty well known because at the end, when they're all talking about their experiences to the police before they find the thing in the marble bag, Data says, and this is in the final cut of the film, he's like, and then the giant octopus was really scary. And then all the kids are like, oh, yeah, that octopus. I think it got cut because it just never looked realistic enough. They tried using, it was a practical octopus. It was a giant, like 8-foot-long puppet, and it just didn't look great. There's a full clip of the scene on YouTube that I would highly recommend everyone go watch.
Oh, interesting.
Because it's really, really cool. It's really neat.
because I always want like Jim Henson, obviously another person that's very much involved and incorporated in the '80s. You have all these films in '90s of him, like Pan's Labyrinth, not Pan's Labyrinth, The Labyrinth with
Labyrinth, David Bowie.
David Bowie, not Pan's Labyrinth. That's a very much different film. But like of course you have these characters, not characters, these moments of the film that just that I guess it feels so whole, and I like that though. And there are behind the scenes, and it just kind of makes me feel like that everyone those two things that you just mentioned, an octopus and then two gorillas, make it feel so like they're also still having fun.
Yeah,
like everyone on set, from directors to actors to everyone.
Yeah, there was what the crew wanted to do is they wanted every reaction from the kids to be authentic.
Okay.
So in the water slide scene, that was the first take and only take. When they see One-Eyed Willie's ship, that was the first and only take.
Okay, that's
and they
super cool.
kept the kids in the dark for almost everything just to get the reactions of everything as real as possible. And I don't know, just like knowing that and going back and watching it, I watch all the excitement when they're going down the water slide, and then when they land at the end of the water slide and they see One-Eyed Willie's ships, just the sense of like, oh my God, look at this giant practical pirate ship set. It's incredible. I think I can only speak on my own experiences, but my entire life I've wanted to be a pirate. Pirates have always been my favorite sense
absolutely.
of like yar har fiddle-dee-dee, you know, like I'm so excited. And I like this movie there's a lot of like I know what we love doing on this show is seeing like pulling, how do I word this? Pulling themes out that people might miss. And I think you can still do this with this movie as straightforward as it is.
Mm-hmm.
I think I wrote down here, I think one of the biggest overarching themes is growing up doesn't mean getting rid of your sense of adventure. And I think one of my favorite things that supports this is the inclusion of Chester Copperpot. I think he's a very, very important character that's often overlooked. Chester Copperpot was an adventurer. He was an adult who went to find the One-Eyed Willie's pirate ship, and then the kids find him dead. Instantly, really quickly. And it's because he didn't have that childlike... Because nothing the Goonies do, I think, is luck. I think it's all very planned and very... Especially Data, like, saving them from the pit.
Yeah.
And that comes around at the end where they're like, hey, don't take Willie's treasure. And then eventually Willie's treasure gets taken, and it's a huge Rube Goldberg machine that ends with setting the ship free.
Yep.
And I think that was Willie's way of saying, hey, if you were able to get past everything, you are worthy of being the next captain. You are worthy of this. And that is Mikey. Mikey is the only one worthy of being the next captain. And I think that's just because he had the same sense of adventure. It says somewhere like, One-Eyed Willie, he was the first Goonie. And I think that was a very, very important line.
That's I remember I was going to mention that. So like being that character that is that, like, in a lot of ways, that first Goonie, that adventurer, and you have all these kids who, in a lot of ways, are a crew, and it's like, because everyone wants to dream of this fantastical idea of being a pirate. I feel like that's a very childlike thing. It's like pirates, knights, like saving the princess, or you have going on the adventure. And then, like, obviously you have more sci-fi things as well, but like the Goonies incorporates this idea with every character being like they're a part of a crew. And that's something I find super, super unique. And also their nicknames are character traits in a lot of ways. And I think that's something that's really cute because obviously you have characters like Data, who is an inventor, this crazy, like smart person. And then you have Chunk, who is like kind of in a lot of ways a comic relief. Like and you can incorporate that to a lot of like pirate ideas or adventure ideas where you have these characters that are simply this idea. And then you could incorporate it into your real life. You have so many times with my friends where I have like that one friend, like if I need to ask a question that's like about like something, some kind of like mathematics or physics or anything like that, it's like he knows it, you know. And it's like we're like I can totally close my eyes and go on an adventure with them in my mind. And it's like even if we like obviously never do that, we can always talk about it and feel like we're doing the adventures and being like a kid again. And like even if it's like us playing Monopoly or playing Risk or small like board games, like I can like imagine playing with my friends and thinking of this grandiose adventure I'm going on with them. And I don't know, I just think I think this is an idea that this film it does really, really well. And I just like being a kid and being so incorporated in this idea that like you need to grow up, and it's so hard to like just exist. Being a kid is so super, super difficult. Like no one like ever really realizes it until you're not a kid anymore. So, and it's like you grow up and then all of a sudden you're not a kid, and it's like you realize that you all your struggles are now adulthood struggles, and you want those kid struggles back no matter how hard they were for you. And I think that something about being a kid is just living in the now, and it's something you don't really ever want to think of the future. And I think that this Goonies does it so well.
Absolutely. I love how, like, I've never been on a giant pirate adventure, you know?
No, neither have I.
But everything in this film feels so familiar with sort of experiences I've had with my friends. Some of my best friends in the whole entire world, Ty, Joey, Braden, Mikey, Rami, like, we were a crew. And we would always drive around every day, hanging out, going on crazy adventures to a significantly lesser scale. But it feels just as real as this movie makes me feel. You know, it's a very familiar callback to a time when we weren't all split up across the country at different colleges. A time where we were all together and spending every single second of an entire summer together. And it's a very comforting sort of thing to look back at, you know?
Absolutely, yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think that something about this film is about being a kid is like, so I you just said, you mentioning your friends, is like I had a lot of friends in elementary school, and like Brandon and Nicholas Floor and like Cedric and all these kids that I grew up like being close friends with, and then all of a sudden, like we'd always go on at recess, going on these crazy adventures, and then and then all of a sudden I went to middle school, and then like those adventures stopped, recess stopped, and then I kind of like was like, man, I miss those stuff again.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite little bits of behind the scene knowledge is actually has to do with Steven Spielberg. He was producer on this, and it's kind of agreed upon that he helped a ton with directing and with writing. And once they wrapped, he went to his condo in Hawaii, and the director thought it would be funny if he flew all of the kids and crashed Steven Spielberg's vacation. So all of the kids showed up to Steven Spielberg's condo uninvited in Hawaii the day after wrap. And I mentioned that just because of how you can tell that this is a family, you know?
Yeah, no, yeah. And one thing I always hear from behind the scenes of Sean Astin, because he's a very big...
Yeah.
One thing about Sean Astin, he's this big lover of every work he's really ever done.
Yes.
And so if you see like a behind the scenes of Sean, he talks so highly of the camaraderie that he had. And one person he talks about super highly is... oh my God, I just forgot his name off the top of my head. Thanos' actor.
Josh Brolin.
Brad. He talks so highly about how he was literally a big brother for everyone
Yeah.
on set. Like he cared about the kids, and he's like, he's only 10 years older than me, but like I still look at him like my older brother. And
Absolutely.
it's like, and you see Ki Kwan last year talk about like how much he loved being on Indiana Jones, and how much Steven Spielberg in this movie as well made him feel like a human, where he previously never felt like he existed to people. And like that's something that like I think that is very important, is that every again, I know we're talking to death about like the interactions with these kids, but it's just it's unmatched. And like obviously you have the comic reliefs, and one thing I can't remember the villain, but he's not villain. I can't remember his name.
The Fratellis?
The Fratellis, but no, it's the guy with the messed up face.
Sloth,
yes, and like. The incorporation of him being kind of a Goonie as well is something that, because he's a child at heart, he's a child at mind because of how he was raised. And the incorporation of him is like, it doesn't matter how old you are, how like in a lot of ways unabled you are to exist as a day-to-day life as a maybe a man or anything like that. You can still be in an adventure, and you can still be good. Like at the end of the day, because one thing about this film is like obviously you have the Fratellis as being villains. They are villains. They're only out for greed. They're only out for greed and power. You know, and you have this character, part of them, that is very much a child that doesn't want that. Like, I only dropped you once or maybe twice, like kind of thing like that.
Yeah.
Where like they are absolutely villainous, and they're treating this person horribly who just wants to be a kid, wants to go on these adventures, and wants to do the good things that these kids are showcasing that they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the concept of anyone can be a Goonie is very, very powerful. Because, like, looking at it, Andy and Steph don't know the kids at all until the start of the adventure. You know, they just run across Brad, and then instantly they get accepted. Just like instantly, you're a Goonie now. Same with Sloth, same with One-Eyed Willie, and it's they're all connected through this sense of adventure, this childlike wonder, and this feeling of we can do anything, never say die. Goonies never say die.
Goonies said never say die, and it's just something that again, it is something that's so incorporated in so many movies nowadays. It's like I always talk about inspirations, because if you look at like a lot of modern day films, I mean, like an inspiration was done in the cinematography or the writing. If you talk about like the new Dune movie, like that book apparently incorporated so much stuff into Star Wars, into a lot of sci-fi movies. But like this film, it's not based on a book. It's an original idea, right?
I believe so.
I think it's an original idea. If it's not, don't quote me on it. But I see so much adventure in movies use these ideas of Goonies so much. And maybe it's just because they use very similar tropes, or maybe that Goonies is not original, where it also uses tropes from books or previous adventure movies. But to me, Goonies perfected it. It's this idea that all of a sudden all these people immediately want to go on this crazy grandiose adventure where they all kind of come together. Unlikely people, like you have like everyone from every kind of idea, and then they all of a sudden go on this adventure, and then that is a treasure hunt. And the reason I'm comparing it a lot to Pirates of the Caribbean, the first one especially, is because that's a very close movie to my heart. And that is in many ways not an action or like drama movie, like, or comedy like people want it to be. It is an adventure movie.
Absolutely.
And I watch that movie and I'm like, this is just like a grown-up Goonies, like in a lot of ways, because they're going on an adventure to where they find a big treasure haul where taking the treasure is a trap. And it's I'm like, it's just, and they have villains that are against them the whole long of the way that are a part of it. And it's just like, and then there's like that monkey that's a part of it too that ends up becoming like it's all small things where I'm like, man, this is just like Goonies. And I'm like,
absolutely,
like I'm like watching this, and I watch a movie or watch a TV show like Stranger Things, and Stranger Things is a great example, because I don't know if you've ever seen it, but there is, I think in many ways that is like the most Goonies core thing ever.
Those are
like,
group of Goonies right there.
Yeah, it's like it is like that, and it's like so many times you see a movie and you're like, man, these are just like that is a group of Goonies. You're right, and it's like I love these characters, and I love how characterized they are, and how many small things they happen. Where like even like everyone gets their moment too, where the girl plays the piano, or like you said, Data saving them. Everyone gets their moment, and it's just so. It's so heart refreshing, because it doesn't feel like you're watching a movie with side characters like the Justice League, where your favorite character doesn't do anything, and because it's a poorly written movie. You get every character getting their own moment and being their own main character, and I love that. I love that because it doesn't feel like anyone's subsidiary. Everyone is their own human being that is incorporated into this adventure, because they are part of the crew. Goonies never say die, because they're all Goonies. They're all going to help each other get to the goal.
Absolutely. I think that's what adds to the realism of how everything feels like it could be ripped straight from reality, is just the sense of like, just like in reality, everyone is the hero of their own story. There isn't a very, like, this movie does not have a traditional lead. I think Mikey, Sean Alston is obviously the quote unquote lead. But that's just because we sort of see everything through his eyes, you know? Like, Mouth has his moments, Chunk has his moments, Data has his moments. Every single character, it's not Mikey leading a crew of people, and then Mikey just does everything and they're just, like, there to support him. No, it's Mikey leading a crew of people who each bring something to the table, who each help along the adventure. And it's what I think is the most realistic part of it, because I know, like, in a lot of friend groups, there's always like one person that everyone rallies around, but everyone still has a reason for being there. You know, I think it would have been super easy just to have Chris Columbus sort of make Mikey this like Jesus character who can do everything, and like every single thing it's the only thing that sets Mikey apart and sort of makes him the lead is the sense that he heard the call to adventure and he took it, whereas the other ones didn't. You know?
Yeah.
That's it, you know?
And there's one thing. So, like, I've always loved that idea that you just mentioned. So, because I've always known this in friend group. No matter, like, I love the way you just said that, though. It's like even though there is a quote-unquote lead in almost every friend group, my friend group has them, and my best friend Sam, like he is a leader. And it's the thing is but it doesn't mean that everyone, just because that person like Mikey is a leader doesn't mean that everyone doesn't have their own aspect that they bring to the crew. Doesn't mean they're not there. They're just their subsidiary. It's there for everyone's there for a reason. And the thing that Mikey brings is, like you said, he brings that call to adventure. But more than that, he also brings this sense of leadership. Even though he is the main character in a lot of ways from the audience perspective, he is also just the leader. But it doesn't mean that he's doing everything. He's just the person that hears that call to adventure and kind of knows the direction that they all need to go to create that wonderful story that's going to happen to them that they're probably going to tell their kids and their kids. I'm really glad Goonies doesn't have a sequel or like a reboot, because I've heard that there's talks about like doing like the kids of the Goonies.
Yeah.
And I was like, that would be great.
No, thanks. That's all good. We got it. We're good.
But the thing is like the thing that Mikey does exceptionally is that he brings that. You're right. He brings the call to adventure, and then he also brings the leadership that is needed where he lets these characters thrive. You get like Dada and Chunk and Andy and Brad. Everyone get these moments because of his leadership.
Absolutely. Let's go through the plot. Yes.
So we were not just talking about the characters. We've been gushing about the characters, the setting, and like the themes. We gotta talk about the plot.
So it starts with Mikey and Brad are brothers, and their dynamic is incredible. There's this one scene that always sort of sticks out to me because I'm a younger brother and I'm also an older brother. So there's this one scene where they're all Mikey. Well, okay. So basically, there's a bunch of rich people that are like, "Oh, we want to destroy your town and build a country club over it," and that is lame. All the characters not so thrilled about that.
Yeah.
So then these guys, these suits come up and they're like, "Hey, we need you to sign these paperworks." This is at the beginning of the film. And they're like, "Our parents aren't home. We can't do it." So the suits walk away. All of the kids are out there witnessing it. All of the kids except Brad and Mikey, the two brothers, go back inside. And Mikey just runs and gives Brad a huge hug. And they have this moment of just like, "Hey, this sucks. You know, there's nothing we can do about it. You're super, super powerless because you're just a kid." And then to sort of keep face, they walk back in, and Mikey positions himself so that Brad can headlock him as they walk back inside to sort of mask the fact that they're doing a hug. And it's just this quick 2-second moment that is real, you know?
Yeah.
I'm an older brother. I'm also a younger brother. This happens, you know? And just the way that Chris Columbus, if he wrote this part or if this was a Josh and Sean moment, like it is so perfect. And that is the moment that sells me that these two are brothers. They love each other. They piss each other off. It's a real relationship, you know?
Mm-hmm, yeah, absolutely. And then from then on, the plot progresses. Every character starts coming to the house,
yes.
right? Yeah, because of they saw the cops, that cop chase, and they all that come to the house, and then the call to adventure happens with Mikey, and it's he finds the map in his attic, right? Is that what it was? Yeah,
his dad works for a museum.
Yeah,
and the One-Eyed Willie. Okay, so they're from the Goondocks, Oregon, which is a part of Astoria, Oregon. And there's a pirate called One-Eyed Willie who was really famous, and there was a huge exhibit at the museum that their dad works at.
Yep. But
the exhibit just closed down, so everything is in their attic.
Yeah.
So they find the map and the little medallion.
Yes. And
from there, Mikey's like, "Hey, we're gonna be gone next Saturday. Like, there won't be a place like this soon. This is our time. This is our last time.
We need to save the town."
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're gonna be the ones that do it. And he brings that call to action to his friends, and then the story progresses. And then obviously you have the villains who are incorporated into it because they see the money and they want it for themselves.
Absolutely. It starts off where what I like is that it doesn't start off with the Fratellis wanting the money. It's not something they thought about until the kids revealed it, you know? So I think that sort of, again, adds the realism of this film of like, oh, it's just so happened that they, at the same exact time in history, everyone's going after the same 100-year-old treasure.
Yep.
No, it's they start at the lighthouse that the Fratellis are using as a hideout.
Yep.
And they follow them, and then they find out about the treasure.
Yeah.
You know?
And then again, the story progresses where it essentially the entire thing starts becoming underground and then in caves and everything like that.
Yeah.
And it's something that I find very unique because most of this film doesn't take place like out in the day. It takes place where these kids are in a unknown place, and it's something I've always talked about with lighting. when you are out in a day public, no matter where you are, that is known. Like you like because of how lighting is done and how like day-to-day life is done. If you were outside, you could be in like a brand new place, but if you're in the daylight, it can still be a known place.
Yeah.
And so what this thing is, though, what the directors do is they incorporate this idea of they put the kids essentially in underground caves and like essentially around the ocean and water, and it's all dark. It's not like obviously not super dark where you can't see anything, but it's like it's darker. Yeah. And it makes the sense of these kids are in an unknown place and they are now on a treasure hunt of anything is unexpected at this point.
Absolutely. They go through a bunch of these Rube Goldberg type like booby traps.
Yeah.
And I think what's interesting is just another reason why Mikey is the true successor to One-Eyed Willie is at the beginning of the film, the way that Mikey opens his door to let his friends in is this giant Rube Goldberg scare a chicken and egg drops out, and it's like the way to like it's a whole bit. You know?
You see Rube Goldberg machines kind of throughout the film, and I think that is very much intentional.
Absolutely, it's beautiful.
Yeah, no, and then obviously you have booby traps throughout the film that end up trapping the kids or putting them in like some sense of harm that they always need to do something to solve. And then the final thing where you said like they get the Rube Goldberg machine that pierces the boat through the outside, you know, and like all the light comes in and it suddenly becomes known. And then the way that they see knownness again is at the end of the film where obviously all the parents thought all these kids were missing. And they were lost. So like, the parents thought they were missing was like missing kids or like lost kids, kidnapped kids. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
They and then at the very end of the film, every single parent who's also very much a character of their own.
Yes.
You obviously don't see them until the kind of end, and you see that how characterized they are in terms of like how an inspiration of a parent raises a child. But nonetheless, and then they. Then the film ends. It's like every character is all together. They in a lot of ways save the town, save everything, and then, like the villains got toppled with a new Goonie to attached. It's like that idea. It's beautiful, and I don't know. And it's essentially this call to action from the start, where you have characters that are in a lot of ways their own people that you get a call to action to save. It's not necessarily for themselves. It's not greed. They're not like where it's like, oh, I want to get this the treasure or for myself. I want to be able to be a millionaire. It's I want to get this treasure to save the town. And there's also this idea that they they're also doing it for an adventure, not just the money and not just that. And it's like they're going on an adventure to be on an adventure, and because the Goonies never die, and the Goonies never say die, and it's like that's what it is, and that's why they succeed is because like they care about the journey and not necessarily just the reward at the end.
Yeah, I don't believe that any of the kids keep any of the money.
No.
Basically, they only are able to go out with a single marble bag of gems and coins and treasure. That's all that they escape with. And without hesitation, they immediately give it to their parents to don't build a country club. Here's some money. Save our house. Save the town. Save the Goondocks, you know? And I think that's I don't know. It's just the purest form of a conclusion, whereas it's not financially motivated, whereas the Fratellis want it for their own personal gain.
Yeah.
They want it to keep their town, to keep the Goonies alive.
And it's a lot of ways to keep adventure alive.
Yeah.
Because so much of we get this again, like we talked about, and one thing I want to talk about this film is like it's a lot of. I mean, every movie in my opinion is best at going blind. And this is one of the few films where it's like you can listen a little bit more about it. And it's like yes, it's a very much adventure film where you have so many characters that are going on this crazy adventure, and you have so many really really well written characters, kids and all. And I'm kind of losing my train of thought when I'm going on this, but like what I'm saying is that. You can go into this film knowing a little bit about like it's a journey of kids that end up succeeding. That like you're not gonna like if you think they're gonna fail, it's like not the point of the movie. And you can watch this movie with every pre-context, every knowledge that what's gonna happen, and still have an enjoyable time because it's not the story being told that was impactful. It's like, yes, it's a good story, but and it's great. It's more the way it's how it's told. You have kids that are going on that call to adventure, that are going on an adventure that each of their own, that have failures and successes each in their own right, where everyone has their own character trait and doesn't feel like anyone is subsidiary to any other one. And all in all, everyone just, you see this adventure movie that succeeds, and it's heartwarming, and it's something you can watch with your parents or your kids or your brothers and your sisters or anyone, or your friends, or your boyfriend, your girlfriend, and it's just, man, like you feel like a kid again when you watch this movie. Every single time I watch it, I'm like, I'm a kid. Like, it's like, that's what's so great about it, is that you feel like a kid again.
Mm-hmm. I think I read this in a textbook somewhere, and I don't really remember who said it, but it was simplistic plot allows for really complex characters, and I think this is a perfect example of that. I much prefer simple plot, complex characters. This is very much a character study of what it means to be a child, what it is to have that sense of adventure. And because if you take a step back, the plot is, oh my God, we found a map. Let's follow the map. There's a ship. We're done. Like it's not like a Lord of the Rings or like a Dune where it's like you have to study before seeing the movie to understand the plot. It's a very, very simplistic plot with a very, very, very complex characters.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you mentioned like Lord of the Rings, is because obviously it shares the character of Sean Astin in it.
It does.
Where that movie is, again, a call to adventure. Frodo finds a ring and needs to go on this crazy adventure. But that is more like, there are elves, and then there are gods as well among us. And then Sauron does this. And I'm saying this as the biggest Lord of the Rings fan, by the way. I am a Lord of the Rings lover, and it's like, but yeah, you're right. In Dune, who I am now one of the biggest Dune fans. I am Paul Madi Atreides. That's what I'm saying. I'm one of the biggest Dune fans right now. Like, you need to do homework before watching these adventure movies. These movies that, in a lot of ways, are heavily intense. And I incorporate Lord of the Rings much more to this film of Goonies, because it is very much everyone has their own thing that they bring. You have the Sam, the Merry, the Pippin, and the Frodo, who all bring their own, and Aragorn, obviously, the Fellowship. And that's where those are just a set of Goonies. Even though the book came before the Goonies, but it is. Like, they really are. They're a set of Goonies that, their journey is much more about, like, life or death versus adventure and saving the town. It is still very much that idea that it is an adventure film. And you can see some aspects of probably the Goonies in there. It's like even if maybe no one watched it, no one was incorporated, Sean Astin might have brought just a little bit of the Goonies with him. That's what I'm thinking,
Yeah.
And I mentioned Stranger Things is a big inspiration because, like, it's set in the 80s, obviously, and there are so many things in the 80s that are about a group of people. Like, so many movies that you are really not about one singular character, but like
it's an ensemble.
It's an ensemble films. And that's a very big 80s trope. You have Breakfast Club, for instance.
Yeah.
Very. I'm a Breakfast Club hater, by the way. I'm just letting everyone know that. But like, it is, again, a movie that's about a group of people that are, in a lot of ways, troubled and dysfunctional, and then you have the Goonies, who are, in a lot of ways, they are dysfunctional. You can't say they're functional. They're on their own right. They're dysfunctional, but they're functionally dysfunctional.
Yes.
And I love that. And that's what it's so great about the 80s, and it's great about like 80s inspired things, is that you feel like everyone that's why it becomes so much more relatable, and you can see yourself in every character, is because it's not just a singular character that has one character trait. It's that they are a human being that is good at a couple things, but they may be failure at other things. And then each person works off each other and builds off each other to create a holistic and functional idea of everyone being successful at the end of their story.
Absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind that the writers of Stranger Things studied the Goonies
immensely. No, without a doubt.
Like, there's no way, just like
the Goonies is in many ways the basis of any kid adventure film nowadays.
Absolutely. And the Stranger Things kids are Goonies.
Yes.
Like, there's no, so it's just so fun.
You literally have characters like Steve being equated to Brad, Nancy being equated to what's the girl's name? No, not Andy. What's the girl's name? The redhead that plays the piano.
Oh, Andy.
Oh, it is Andy. Okay, not crazy.
Andy.
Yeah, you have Nancy as Andy. Like everyone. Yeah.
Sloth is 11.
Yes.
It's just like a bunch of, I don't know. It's. I'm not sitting here saying, oh, they ripped off the Goonies. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that they took these incredible tropes and expanded on them and made them. I think that's what made Stranger Things so enjoyable and why it blew up the way it did. Is everyone saw themselves and the adventure that they had in the.
I mean,
in
look
the
at
Stranger
Goonies.
Things
Goonies is one of the most beloved films of all time. And it's something that like I think that everyone loves. It's something that like everyone can love about anything is that you want to be a kid again. I think that's something that everyone really wants in their life. And Stranger Things, very much heavily inspired by the Goonies, made you feel that sense of being a kid again because it's the kids saving the day. It's not adults doing it. It's the kids that save the day. And that imagination that is incorporated into that is something the Goonies perfected. And like there have been adventure films before Goonies. There have been adventure films after Goonies. There have been adventure books before Goonies. There have been adventure books after Goonies. But so many ways, Goonies is that idea of a perfectioned idea of what adventure as a kid can be. I want to go on an adventure after watching the Goonies. I want to be a kid again, and that's what I love. And it's like I know we're kind of skimming the plot because the plot is in many ways it's a basic plot. It is. It's kids going to save the day underground, going through a bunch of booby traps, all that stuff. There's very big mustache twirling villains that have their own things. It's the characters in that journey, not the story, but the journey that they go on that feels so just heartwarming and amazing to watch.
Absolutely. There's another movie that is heavily inspired by the Goonies that I watch. It might be a bit obscure, but it's called Earth to Echo.
I've never seen it.
Earth to Echo is if you took the Goonies and made it. As the Goonies are in the 80s, Earth to Echo is in the early 2000s.
Okay.
And it's also a found footage, but the main reason I bring it up is there's this one line in Earth to Echo that I think should have been in Goonies. It's a line that's basically the big bad is trying to build a freeway over their town, and they're about to lose all their houses, and it's like it's the same plot. But there's this line that one of the lead characters says is he's like, and what sucks about all of this is that you feel so powerless because no one will take you seriously because you're just a kid.
Yeah.
You know? And then it's taking that premise at the beginning and proving it wrong. Like, I'm just a kid, I can't do anything, watch me. I will save the town. I will do this. I will do that. And I think that's the antithesis. I can't speak. The antithesis of what the Goonies, like the message they wanted to bring to the table of like, it doesn't matter if you're a kid. You can still do anything, really. And I think that was a really, really important lesson for me to watch at a very young age. You know?
One thing that's even, like you mentioned that Earth to Echo says that, even if Goonies doesn't say that, you feel it. Like,
absolutely, yeah.
It's like... And like that's one thing I guess Chris Columbus, my bad. Chris is good because if you look at like even though Harry Potter, for instance, is like the chosen one, no one takes him seriously throughout the film in a lot of ways. And then you also have the biggest example of no one taking him seriously is Kevin McAllister. And the Goonies is another version of that. Kids might be the smartest person you know, but you just might not believe them because simply they're just a kid.
Absolutely.
And I think that, I don't know, I love that. I really do. I just, there's so many things about what the Goonies do. I don't know. I just think the things that the Goonies do that I miss in a lot of movies and I miss in a lot of TV shows that I wish was done more often. But at the end of the day, it's like it doesn't need to be. Every movie is its own right. We talked about many different kinds of movies on this podcast, and the Goonies is its own special right. And I think that makes what every movie does special is that each movie has its own trait that makes it so enjoyable. And the Goonies for me is that sense of adventure and that sense of childhood wonder that is very rarely found in movies nowadays. And we've talked about other movies that have different kind of tropes. Iron Claw has that family. How to Train Your Dragon has a dynamic between two characters. And you have Walter Mitty, which is a sense of an individual adventure. All these movies have their own idea that makes them so enjoyable for me and Andy. And the Goonies for us, I think in a lot of ways, is this sense of that childhood wonder, that sense of what makes life worth living, even if it's just reminiscing about being a kid, being on that adventure.
Absolutely. Well, are there any final thoughts that you want to...
You can't rent this movie. You can't stream this movie anywhere.
Boo!
It's rentable only, but watch it renting.
Yeah, do it.
Oh, this music's great. Listen to the music as we go out. We'll see you guys next week.
Yeah.
Listen again, 3 p.m.
Yeah, I think what I want to leave is what I said earlier of Goonies is about the transition to adulthood. Hold on to that wonder. Growing up doesn't mean getting rid of your sense of adventure.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Have a good one, y'all.
Have a good one, and we'll see you all next time.